Bava, basra, we're starting with the second line. We learn in a property that appreciated on its own, that a b'chayit gets a double chelik, as long as the Yisayim themselves, the brothers weren't mashki any money in it. Like Yomar money, who was this shita learned like? Says Yomar Rabbi, follows Rabbi, the Tanya that we learned in the Brisa. A b'chai cannot collect the second part, the double part, in the property that appreciated after the death of the father, and even if it was a shvach, appreciation that happened on its own. Rabbi says, I say that a b'chai does take a double chelik in the appreciation that nechasim appreciated after the father's death, if it appreciated on its own, after the death of the father, or like the case of the potter that was grazing in the marsh and it gave birth to a calf, so that was a shvach that came, appreciation that came on its own. And in that, Rabbi holds that the b'chai gets pishnayim, gets a double chelik. But not in the shvach, not in the appreciation that was done through the brothers, the Yisayim, putting in money in the chasm of the father. Like if they build houses in the property of the father. If the brothers inherited a shtar chayiv, meaning that the father lent out money to another person, and the father left a shtar for them to collect, the b'chai gets a double chelik. If a shtar chayiv against the father was put out to collect, the b'chai has to give from the nechasim a double chelik. What's if the b'chai says, before they divided the Yerusha, Ani Noisen, I'm sorry, Eini Noisen, Eini Noitel, I don't want to take a double portion, and I don't want to give a double portion to the Baal Chayv. Reshai could say that. What would the chilik be? The Hashbam says the chilik will be that if the Baal Chayv came to collect from the property, so if he had a double chilik and the other brothers are not around, so he can immediately collect a double chelik. But what's if he gave away his double chelik to the rest of the family and he had an equal portion with the rest of the brothers? Then he can only demand the chelik that he has, and from the brothers he cannot collect till either because they're minors or at the outside, then different lands. So therefore he wouldn't be able to collect that. In fact, what's the reason of the Chachamim of the Rabbanon that say that the b'chai cannot take his double portion in the appreciation that happened on its own? And the Gemara Damakra, because it says in the pasuk in Dvarim, the word lasesloi is matana kariyach. One of the Torah uses the lashon of the Yerusha, the lashon of matana. So ma matana, just like by a matana adam matla yodei, that the father cannot give away a matana till he actually has it in his hands to give it away. So too, the double portion, the father cannot give it till it reaches, till the father actually has it. The Rabbi says that a b'chai does get double in the appreciation that happened on its own. Damakra, where does he learn it out? Because the source is, the pasuk says Pishnayim. Pishnayim, that means that he puts the chelik hapash with the chelik b'chayr as one. Makish chelik b'chayr, chelik pasha. So therefore we compare the chelik b'chayr to the regular chelik, because Pishnayim is including both chalakim together. So we compare the chelik of the b'chayr to the chelik hapash, chelik pasha. Just like by the Pashta Chelik, the simple part, like that he has equal to the other brothers. Afagav the Leimata Leyade, even though the money didn't enter yet the father's hands, the Yisayim get it. they inherit that money. So too the chelik b'chelik. Even though the money hasn't reached yet the father's hands, it only appreciated after his death, or they got the money after his death. The b'chelik gets a double portion. So what about the Rabbanan? The Rabbanan say that he doesn't get in the automatic appreciation a double chelik. Why not? It says pishnayim, which includes chelik, the chelik hapashim, the chelik habecher, to compare one to another. So l'cheira, he should get even in the appreciation that happened after the death. And the Gemara no, pishnayim is coming to teach you that if there was two brothers dividing, one is a becher, so the chelik hapashit of the one that's not getting the double portion cannot demand he wants the middle field between the two fields, so the becher would have two fields that are not next to each other on the two sides of the middle field. The halacha is no. The only thing that the one that's a pasha, that's not the becher, could demand is either to the extreme right or to the extreme left. But he has to allow the becher to have the two fields next to each other. Rabbi Nami, and Rabbi says, effectively, Rabbi who says that you do, the becher does get a double portion in the field that appreciated on its own, or any item that has appreciated after the death. Becher gets a second chelik. Oksiv lasses slave. It says the pasuk lasses slave. It's like in a lashna matana, and we know by a lashna matana means you have to have it in order to be able to give it. And since the father didn't have it at the time of his death, so l'cheira the becher should not be able to get another chelik in that part, because only where should he be able to get a second part? Only if the father actually had it before his death. Says Yimana, that pasuk, the lasses Yahu, that's coming to teach us that if the becher decides that he doesn't want to take a double chelik and he doesn't want to have to pay the balchev a double chelik, Rasha he could, because it's a matana. And since the Torah calls the chelik becher a matana, so he can be mezaka against the person's will, and therefore he doesn't have to accept it, and therefore he could say Eini Naisan, I'm not taking the chelik becher, because he cannot force it upon him. A schus you cannot force upon a person. Amar Papa said, if the father left a dikla, a tree, so the alim, and the tree grew strong after the father passed away. He left land, and water was always over it. They couldn't grow, and then the water pushed a whole bunch of sediments, and it went above the water, and it started to grow. Everybody agrees that the firstborn takes a double chelik. Since the father was a mulsik in the tree itself or in the karka, so the shvach is considered, also the appreciation is considered as if the father was mulsik in it. Keep pligi, where's the machlekes of Rabbi and the Chachamim? Only bechafura, only by a case, where the father left a field containing shoots of grain, and they developed into ears after he died, or the father left a tree of a date tree, but blossoms, just blossoms, and they developed into dates after his death. The Mars of one Tana holds that it's the Mars of the Bemela. It's appreciation that came on its own, and therefore the Becher has a second chelik in it. The Mars of Ishtani, and one Tana says no, since it changed into a new object, so and it has a new name, so therefore this is not the item that the father was musik when he died. It's a new item, and therefore the Becher cannot get a double chelik in it. Rabbi said in the name of Rabbi Chia, ask the Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi, one who passing the din that B'chai takes Pishnaim in the Shvach, in the appreciation that came automatically after the father's death, also his psak is Kayim. If somebody dying that passing to B'chachamim, that B'chai does not take in the Shvach that comes on its own, also the psak is also Mekriim there as well. Mesafkele Rabchia, it was Rabchia was Mesufik. Kates that lives how to paskin whenever there's machlekes of Rabbi together with other Tanoim. I halacha Rabbi Mechavedav, but like Mechavedav is the halacha like Rabbi only against one of his colleagues, but not against a whole bunch of his colleagues. But like Mechavedav. Oy halacha Rabbi Mechavedav, after Mechavedav, all the halacha is like Rabbi against his own colleague, one colleague, and even if it's a Rabbim against him. Rav Nachman also last is Kedivir Rav Yosi. So Rav Nachman said in the name of Rav, it's forbidden for a dying to paskin in our Indian like Rabbi, because the Kasaba, because he holds that the klal is the halacha Rabbi Mechavedav, but Mechavedav. The halacha is like Rabbi only against one of his colleagues, not against the Rabbin. Rav Nachman Deyama, but Rav Nachman himself holds Mutta last is Kedivir Rabbi. You could paskin like the words of Rabbi. Like in our case, that a b'chai gets a pishnayim in the appreciation that happened after the father's death that came with derech b'meila. The kasavar, because he holds halakha Rebbe mechavedav v'afilu mechavedav. The halakha is like Rebbe, not only against his colleague, but even if it's a Rebbe. Amar Rava said, "Asal a dayan lasik do Rebbe." It's forbidden for a dayan to do like Rebbe when it comes to shvach. Im asa, but im b'diavad the dying pasking to Rabbi asa. Daira is kayamas. Rabbi as the kasaba, because b'negei tamak m'shanach lak Rabbi keneg Rabbi matin idma. Rabbi holds that when when you have a Rabbim against Rabbi, we have to be inclined to pasking like the Rabbim, like the Shitz Rabbim. But if b'diavad we paskin like Rabbi the Yachid, the din remains mekuyim. Then Rav Nachman had learned Nabraisa b'shosif in the Rav, and the other sifrei of Rav. Now, when it comes to Medish Mechilta, that goes on Shmais. Teres Kainim goes on Vayikra, but the Shah sifrei goes on is referring to Chumashim Bamidbar Udvarim. So we learned over there, it says that a b'chai takes Pishnaim and then the Nichse of the father, Dafkin Chalasha Yimatzalai. Dafkin Nechasim, that the father was a Musik at the time of his death. Prat L'Shvach, Sheish B'chai Yershim, Lachem Isavim, excluding the Shvach that the Yershim had appreciated after the death of the father, that the b'chai does, in that case doesn't take Pishnaim. Aval B'Shevach Sheshavchen Nechasim, Lachem Isavim, Shakal. But in a shvach, that the appreciation that it was appreciated on its own after the death of the father, then the b'chai takes a double portion of money. Who was this Brisa learned? Like Rabbi, that a b'chai takes pishnayim and any appreciation that comes on its own after the death of the father. We learned in the Brisa, another Brisa that argues on the previous Brisa. Sifrei Devei Rav, in the Medrash that goes on Bamidbar and the Varim, it says B'chalash Yimatzalai Prat L'Shvach Sheshach Nechas Macham Misraviyim, excluding a Shvach that Nechas was appreciated after the death of the father, that the B'chai doesn't take Pishnaim, even if it was appreciated on its own. B'derech B'meila. Kol Shekem Shvach Sheyishbichu Yeshim Lacham Misraviyim Lo Yishakol. Much more so in the appreciation that the Yarshim had pumped in and appreciated. Of course, the B'chai will not take Pishnayim. Money, who does this follow? Rabbanani. It follows the Rabbanan. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda saying, "Ei b'chai neitla Pishnayim b'milva." A b'chai doesn't take a double portion by a milva, meaning other people were chayiv the father money, and the Yisraelim were paid only after the death of the father. Even if the father had a shtar nava, A bechei doesn't get a double portion. Laban, according to whom did Shmuel say this? If you can say he goes according to the Chachamim, Hashta Shivcha the Yisrael should say Madach a Shvach that he has in his Rishus and appreciated on its own. Let's say a cow that gave birth to a calf did eat, and it was grazing in the marsh where nobody pumped in any money. Nevertheless, the Rabbanan say the Bechei doesn't take a double portion. Milva, where the father is not musik in the money at all. Of course, the Rabbanan will hold that the Bechei doesn't get a double portion in the appreciation that came on its own. Rather, you can say the Braisa was referring to Rebbe, that when it said that a Bechei doesn't take Pishnayim in the Milva, was going to Rebbe. How could you say that? Well, only this that we lived on Raisa. If one inherited a Shtach which there's ribis, and he collected the chayiv and the ribis, the Bechayiv takes a double portion, sign the bill and sign the ribis. Money, so who does this Raisa that says that he doesn't get in the ribis? Loy Rabbanan cannot follow not Rabbi, nor can it follow the Rabbanan. Says Gemara Loylam Rabbanan really follows the Rabbanan. According to Rabbanan, it's a sure thing that the Bechei doesn't get in the Milva Pishnayim. So what is he coming to teach us? You want to talk about Chamina? Because I would have thought the Milva given the Nakat Shtar about the Gavi Adama. Since the Malva is holding on to the star in his hand, it's as if the Chayiv was already collected, and therefore the Chacham made that the Malva is considered as a musik, meaning the Malva, who's the father, is considered as a musik at the time of his death, and therefore the Bechei can take Pishnayim. Comes the Mishnah, comes Shmuel, and teaches us according to the Chachamim, there's no difference if it's a shvach that comes from a star. We're not going to consider it as if he's a musik. Even in a mill, even by a mill where he has a star, the Bechei doesn't get Pishnayim. Sholch mitam, they sent from Eretz Yisrael, Bechei need Pishnayim b'milva. A Bechei takes a double portion in a milva that was paid after the death of the father. Have a labor ribis, but not in the ribis. So the Yaman Laman, according to which shita was this psak said? Ilema le'abanan. If you can say according to Rabbanan, Hashta Shivcha the Yisrael should say. Madach Shvach, that he has the cow in his ishus, and it gives birth to a calf, or property or tree that gives off tmarim, and after the death. That the Bechei doesn't take Pishnayim, Milva, where the father doesn't have a penny, yet nothing was collected. But for sure he's going to hold the Bechei, doesn't get Pishnayim. It's like a Davish Leiba Leilam. Rather, you're going to say it follows the Rebbe. So, for example, the Shiloh, the Rebbe, Beriba is loy. You can say that according to Rebbe, he doesn't collect, the Bechei doesn't get Pishnayim on the Ribis. Vatani, we learned from Abraisa. Rebbe, Bechei need Pishnayim, Bein B'milva, Bein B'ribis. Sign the Milva, sign the Ribis, even in the Ribis. And the Gemara Leino Rabbanani. And I'm saying the Psak, the B'nai Eretz Yisrael, the Psak of the B'nai Eretz Yisrael is like the Rabbanan. What's the Chiddush? For sure, according to Rabbanan, you don't collect Pishnayim in the Milva, but not only in the Milva, you don't even in the Ribis, you don't even collect in the Milva. And Milva, Keman the Gavi Adami. Why does he say he could collect a double portion of the Milva over here? Because the Rabbanan will hold the Milva is as if it was collected, so he's a Musik. Okay, let's stop. I'm sorry.